You need to see what happens when your spine doesn't close all the way. On our previous video about the skeleton with congenital rickets, we briefly talked about neural tube defects and spina bifida, but let's talk about it a little bit more in depth. Spina bifida is a neural tube defect in which the spine and spinal cord do not form properly, leaving a gap and exposing the spinal cord. Neural tube formation occurs early in gestational development and later forms into the brain and spinal cord. If the neural tube does not close all the way in the initial formation, neural tube defects can occur. Now, if you're struggling to visualize this, here's a typical sacrum next to one with spina bifida, and you can see the opening down the middle. Spina bifida can range from asymptomatic to severe and usually presents in three forms. In spina bifida occulta, there is an opening of the vertebrae, but the spinal cord does not protrude out. Spina bifida meningocele is the rarest type of spina bifida, however, it is not the most severe. In spina bifida meningocele, a fluid-filled sac will be present on the outside of the body, however, no nerves are involved or present in the bundle. The last and most severe type of spina bifida is spina bifida myelomeningocele. In spina bifida myelomeningocele, the sac that is present on the baby's back contains the spinal cord and nerves that push out through the opening of the vertebrae. This type of spina bifida usually leads to complications such as loss of limb movement and bowel dysfunction. Also, fun fact, this is the spine of our individual with gigantism who stood at 7'3", and they also had spina bifida. You can see that the sacrum as well as the L5 is not fused and open. Now, also the ricket skeleton mentioned in the previous video most likely had spina bifida myelomeningocele, specifically as there is a lot of significant opening along the spinal cord. Now, you might also be familiar with spina bifida if you watch the show called The Midwife, as in one of the episodes they briefly talk about how babies born with spina bifida look. And that's a little bit more about spina bifida. If you learned something new today, make sure to like and follow for more.